Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm a half-eaten circus tent.
And this week, we paint the town blue with Season 2 of Netflix and Riot Studios' Arcane. Before we honor the noble montage, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, or following us on Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Leyla.
Aaron.
So this is not the first time we talked about Arcane. We were pretty high on it in 2022. See episode 82 of Mortified. I believe this is episode 178 when this one comes out. So it's been a grip since we covered it. The episode is titled Imagine Dragons as Themselves. Did not get diegetic Imagine Dragons this time around, much to my disappointment. But how are we feeling?
We got diegetic Heimerdinger this time.
Yes, a little bit of a letdown, if I'm being honest.
And diegetic Stray Kids, which was crazy. So, again, disclaimer, I work in games. So even if we did have anything overly critical to say about the show, it wouldn't happen on this show because I don't get in the way of my bag like that. But what I will say is that I thought that the visuals of Season 2 were exquisitely French, but the writing of Season 2 was detrimentally French.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll see how much of this we have to cut, because I really struggled this season, not necessarily from a production standpoint. I thought everything looked and sounded great. I just had a very difficult time following the story, and we'll talk about the reasons why that might be.
I was gonna say, I didn't have trouble following the story. I was just kind of like, I found myself wondering how much of it had to be in there to fulfill the League of Legends related obligations of the show, and how much would have been cut if they didn't have those obligations. But towards the last 4 or 5 episodes, you know, when you go to see a movie at like Regal, there's that like roller coaster thing that they show before the movie.
Sure.
That's
I'm more of an AMC guy.
I see. You're part of the proletariat.
Nicole Kidman going, we come to this place for magic, etc.
Well, in Regal Cinemas, there's a little roller coaster, and it's like you're on the roller coaster, and that's kind of how I felt the last half of the season. I would just throw my hands up and go, wee! But the visuals were so pretty, and I love all the characters so much that, like, even if they hadn't jingled so many keys in front of my face, maybe I'd have more to say, but I was there for it.
I'm going to do a recap of Arcane Season 1.
Sure.
Because I needed one before I watched the show. And then I'm going to go hit some big, broad plot points about Season 2, because there are a lot of characters and a lot of things happen in this season. And if we tried to recap it, it would be a 2-hour-long podcast, which I don't think that either of us want. So
not for this topic, no.
No. So in Arcane Season 1, we got some main characters. We got Jinx and Powder, who are sisters that grow up in the Undercity.
Jinx and Powder is the same person.
Shit. Jinx? Sorry. Already off to a bad start. We have Violet and Powder, who are sisters. Violet is the older sister. Jinx is the younger sister. They grow up in the poor Undercity, which is called Zaun. It is kind of where all the poor people live. They live under Piltover, which is where all the rich people live. One day, Jinx accidentally blows up her friends. Jinx, who is Powder, she becomes Jinx because she's bad luck. She blows up her friends and gets her dad killed when they are trying to steal magic crystals from Jace, who is like a science guy. And he will end up developing hex tech. So Jinx and Vi become enemies because Vi is upset that Jinx blows up her friends and dad. And Violet abandons her sister, and then she gets adopted by Silco. Jinx gets adopted by Silco, who is a drug lord and their dad's old boyfriend. Silco becomes a drug lord. He sells this thing called the Shimmer, I believe. It's like a cool gas / opioid. Doesn't really matter. But he gets killed near the end of Season 1 for reasons that I don't remember. And Jinx is pretty upset by this death because she feels that Silco is her new father. And because she's upset by this death, she fires a magical bazooka into the city council chambers of Piltover. And that's how season 1 ends. We just see her shooting the bazooka.
Well, season 1 ends on the bazooka an inch away from the glass.
Right.
Which is one hell of a way to end a television program.
Yeah, no. They've got all their storyboards and shots very well done. I mean, you put it in your notes, but every frame could be a painting. It's all very impressive here. So season 2 opens with the aftermath of this explosion, which kills a ton of people, mainly the city councilors. But one of these people who is killed is the mother of Caitlin. Caitlin is a cop sniper and Violet's love interest, and that causes some issues. Piltover was like kind of on the brink with declaring war on Zon. Basically, they're like, oh, all the poor people are putting drugs in our nice city. We don't like that. And now they're like, well, the poor people exploded our seat of government. We're not thrilled about that. And then they decide, the remaining counselors who survived this attack decide to say, okay, you know what? We're not going to declare war on all of the Undercity. We're just going to declare war on the girl with the bazooka, Jinx.
Yeah, this is a conversation on capital A, capital C, because, okay, so Caitlin's mom's dead. Caitlin is there, but she's not part of the council. She's just kind of there grieving her mom. This guy, Sallow, who doesn't survive this season, is kind of the main agitator, and he's like, we should storm the Undercity, and everyone else is like, that's a fucking terrible idea. What are you talking about? So, Hottie of the Century, Mel, is like, actually, we shouldn't do that. Caitlin ends up leading the, sniper squad. Mel's mom, Ambessa, who is also very hot and cool, but evil, is more on Sallow's side of, hey, storm all of Zon. And their counselor, Jace, is too busy trying to resurrect his boyfriend, who was very, very heavily injured in the attack. And where we had left, Victor... at the end of season 1 was Victor had just stabbed himself in his failing leg with Hex Tech, which is magic, and it was putting him through a physical transformation, and so now he's in Hex Tech goo for 3 episodes.
He's just a cocoon. And he becomes the series' main antagonist. Weirdly, he becomes the series' final antagonist, not the main one. Which is a choice that is strange to me, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, so there's already a lot of stuff going on here.
This is 2 episodes, maybe 1 episode.
This is episode 1. Episodes 2 and 3 kind of get more into okay, they go down into the Undercity. Caitlin takes her task force, which includes not only Violet, who isn't really pro cop, but she's pro Caitlin, so she gets her cool punchy gloves on and goes down and to help attack the Undercity as part of this task force. It also includes a little redhead cop named Maddie, who becomes important later. But they go and they try to find Jinx. They eventually do find a Jinx. Jinx has become friends with Isha, who is a little girl who thinks that Jinx is really cool. And Jinx starts to take care of her and be a surrogate big sister to her. But they get into this fight. Violet and Caitlin finally pin down Jinx. Jinx is nearly killed, but then Isha is trying to fight Violet and try to save Jinx's life. Caitlin is still shooting, and then Violet's like, "Hey, that's fucked up. You're shooting at a kid."
You're getting 2 different fights mixed up.
Yeah, I'm skipping forward because
we're skipping all that bulk.
Yeah, I mean, what happens there that's plot relevant? The fucking crime lord, there's an attack on the ship, but I skipped all of that because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's 2 things that really lost me, which is all the crime lord stuff, which is there's 3 crime lords all vying to fill Silco's spot, but I don't remember any of them, and they're not charismatic enough for me to care about. And then
the only crime lord thing that matters is the Savika and the goblin fight. And that matters because it's fucking cool. It's a great sequence. Savika's arm is like a little slot machine that was built by Jinx. That sequence rips. I love it. Not relevant to the plot at all.
No, but it is sick.
Which, that's a thing I think is worth bringing up. a lot of stuff that happens in this show doesn't impact the plot, but it is good. Like, I'm glad that sequence exists. I'm I want to call back to the first season where we have the Jinx and Echo fight, which,
Sick.
like, again, doesn't really impact the plot a whole lot. It's one of the best sequences in that show, though, because it is so well shot and animated, and, like, it is such a visual masterpiece. And, like, I don't know. I think the way that I, like, very quickly adapted to the show is, like, I don't think I'm going to retain a whole lot of this. I'm just going to try to enjoy the set pieces.
Yeah. Well, the Savika thing is only relevant because her and Jinx are not on great terms post Soko's death, and this gets them back on good terms, and then Savika and Isha are the ones that kind of start the Zon rebellion, which this show is at its best when it's dealing with interpersonal conflict and interpersonal drama. The show either needed more time or is maybe not built for the political stuff.
I agree, yes.
So, the things I want to talk about are the interpersonal things, but there's so much politics happening around it that I'm like, okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah.
I just,
Nope, I mean, that's fair. That's worth calling out, but that I am skipping a lot here.
Yes.
When Jinx and Caitlyn and Vi have this conflict, Vi eventually separates from Caitlyn. She's like, okay, it's fucked up that you're trying to shoot, you're not trying to shoot a child, but you're not super concerned with this child's safety while you're trying to shoot my estranged sister. I'm going to dip out and go become a goth boxer for a while. That's fine. It's a good time, but it doesn't matter a whole lot. But in the meantime, Caitlyn then decides to ally with Ambessa, who is basically, she's like a warlord from a different country, and she has her army here in Piltover for reasons. She shows up in, like, episode 8 of Arcane season 1, and the reasons are nebulous. I didn't, unfortunately, go back and watch it, so there's probably a reason, but, like, it didn't stick with me. But she's not an occupying army. She's just kind of hanging out and finding movable snacks, as you mentioned in our first episode. From there, Caitlyn allies with Ambessa, and she's like, okay, now we're going to use your army and my cops to attack Zon, and then they basically occupy the Undercity, and then we get this political uprising that's led by Savika and Isha.
It's, again, I get it. I get what they're trying to do, but, like, it is again, so French, right? Because if you think about Les Mis, and
I do a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're always thinking about Les Mis on this program. Think about the big set piece of, like, the big red flag waving on the barricade.
Yeah, do you hear the people sing? Yeah,
all that. That's what they're trying to do with her whole, like, the blue becomes very much Jinx's symbol.
Everybody paints their hair blue.
Which is kind of cool, honestly.
It is cool. I like that.
I like that a bit. And it makes her good moments of, like, anytime anybody with blue hair gets hurt, if their face is obscured, Violet panics and thinks it's Jinx. It's just, like, good use of the tool, but, like, Isha holds up this, like, blue smoke, and then it's like, oh, we're all rebelling. I'm like, I guess. It's very symbolic. It's very French. It's got a je ne sais quoi, and that's fine. But it's again, it's one of those things where I'm like, did you need a couple more episodes? I feel like you needed a couple more episodes, because it started, the political stuff, the interpersonal stuff I thought was really well paced. The political stuff around it I thought was very, a little bit hit or miss, but I also don't love political stuff as a matter of taste.
Right. Unfortunately for me, I love political stuff, which is why I was like, I'm trying to keep track of all the factions and politicking here. And I agree. I think if they had, like, another 4 episodes, this would have had, a little bit more time to breathe. I would have been able to follow it more and be a little bit more, invested in it. But this is already, I believe, the most expensive animated show in history at, like, $250 million. So, like, I understand the need to be conservative with your episodes. But yeah, some of that stuff was just, like, going completely over my head, unfortunately.
Yeah, this can only exist as with Riot as a patron, or someone with the kind of like borderline infinite bank account of Riot as patron, which is cool and sad. Like, it is sad that is the state of things. It is immensely cool that Riot, as an effort to market its game, would let a really cool French studio make a very cool, very artsy show that could not possibly be that canon, considering Jinx.
Spoilers. I mean, we always do spoilers on this podcast, but Jinx does not make it out of this program.
No,
it doesn't seem like, at least. Yeah. So, like, meanwhile, what's happening is that we mentioned Victor is in a cocoon. Somewhere in the point of the show, he gets turned into a cyborg, and he becomes Robot Jesus. And he goes off and founds a commune and starts healing people with his hex tech magic. And he decides that his whole new thing is about evolution, and, you know, he wants to bring about the singularity. So later, when Ambessa's forces come and attack the Undercity, they like find his like encampment, and they attack it and destroy his encampment, and they put him in the cloud, essentially. Like, his consciousness goes into the cloud, I believe, and then he starts taking over the bodies of his followers. And that's, like, kind of one of the main, like, climactic arcs of this. This is also separate from the fact that Jinx and Vi's dead dad, Vander, is now a werewolf.
Love. Because at the end of each episode, you get that creepy doctor from season 1 just like looming over, or a creature is looming over him, like suspended, and you're kind of getting him doing experiments, like he's making a heartbeat and whatever, and you're like, oh, what's this creep up to? And then it's like at the end of the prison break sequence where you get that creature saying powder, and I was like, Vander! And I was right. It was very, not that it was a hard thing to guess, but it was very cool. The Victor stuff, he kind of creates a benevolent hive mind, which I like, and it only becomes unbenevolent due to circumstances. He does get to like borrow his followers' bodies, but they seem pretty accepting of that fact. So 2 things here. 1, I love that the hex tech, when bonded to flesh, looks like oil on water. That is such a cool fucking design element, because it literally visually is telling you it's beautiful but wrong. And I love that. That fucks. What a beautiful way of like getting that message across. And then the other thing is, shout out to close friends of mine who I love and cherish, who are, let's say, obsessed with the Vander and Silco stuff. I've seen a lot of very interesting drawings of Vander and Silco recently.
Define interesting.
Horny? I don't know.
Okay, yeah, just to clarify.
No, just porn. And the thing is, so when Vander has his first moment of recognition of powder, the first concrete image he sees is not his daughter's, but a young Silco. And I'm like, that's interesting. And in my head, I was like, okay, that's a little queer, but like, I wonder if this is the only glimpse of young Silco that we see, and if all my friends are just like extrapolating massive amounts of queer behavior from this one thing. No, they're not. You get a lot to chew on. Those men are, listen, it's not explicit, but the vibes are very domestic and they're very married.
Yeah, no, they have a weird polycule in that alt universe, and it's very nice. Okay, so Caitlyn betrays Ambessa because she gets back into Violet after hooking up with Maddie for a bit.
Mm-hmm. The redhead, if you'll
the
recall.
Redhead, yes. But then Maddie betrays her when Ambessa attacks Piltover. Because why was Ambessa attacking Piltover? I know there's something to do with the Wild Rune.
Okay. So Violet and Jinx take Wolf Vander to Victor and his commune to fix him. And Victor's like, I can do it. And everyone's like, cool. What's happening at the same time is Jace and Echo and Heimerdinger are trying to figure out why Echo's tree is dying, and they end up getting trapped in the singularity and getting punted to an alternate dimension. Well, Echo and Heimerdinger get punted to the alternate dimension. Jace gets psychologically tortured for a very long time.
He gets sent to the Hill of Golgotha for a bit.
Yeah, but when he comes back, Sallow is there, Sallow the counselor who wanted to invade Zon, who has been now healed by Victor. Sallow shows up looking cunty, if I may say. And he's like, it's okay, you and Victor can use me as a walkie-talkie. It's chill. I'm not going to say anything to anybody. I know this is important to you. And Jace has this conversation with Victor about using Hex Tech on normal people. Because Victor has been healed by Hex Tech, he has been radicalized to think it needs to go to everybody. Because Jace was trapped in a torture chamber for ages, he has been radicalized to think that no one should have it. And so, because Sallow tries to take some of the Hex Tech from the lab, Jace smashes him with a hammer. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. But at the same time, oh my god, so Mel gets kidnapped.
Yeah, can we talk about Mel now?
Mel gets kidnapped by the Black Rose, who were trying to blackmail Ambessa because she transgressed against them somehow. I think it's because she was hiding, one of her children is a mage, and she was hiding the mage child, and so they kidnap Mel because they've already kidnapped her brother Kino, and they put Mel in a mind prison, mostly to test if she's a mage or not, and surprise, she is. With a fake version of her brother Kino, who is hot. Ripped to a king. That whole family's hot. Mel's hot. Ambessa's hot. Kino's hot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Listen, they're all very attractive people.
Yeah, so, but that's happening, and Ambessa basically just wants to take over. Her long-term goal is revenge on the mages, but she wants to take over Piltover, and she chases all these threads of a weapon she can use, and her first weapon idea is Vander, which is why she's trying to hunt down Vander, but ends up running into Violet, and that's when Caitlyn ends up switching back to side Violet and teaming up with Violet and Jinx. But then once that battle goes down, and Vander does not survive that battle, neither does Isha, very sad, that is when they discover what Victor can do with the Hex Tech, and that is how he gets roped into the antagonist's side. Mm-hmm. Because then he goes to try and talk to Jace. Jace is like, fuck you. And Victor is like, he like kills the mannequin in which Victor resides. And then Victor's like, okay, you can start the process of making everybody mannequins now.
Basically, it just ends up with Ambessa and Victor working together to attack Piltover.
Right.
And Ambessa is killed by Mel and Caitlyn.
Yes.
Mel gets magic powers, or perhaps she had them all along.
She did have them all along.
And Victor nearly mannequins everybody, except for then Jace uses the power of homosexuality and time travel to convince him to not do that.
Well, you know what? I deserve representation. Jace is a bisexual moron, just like me.
Fair enough.
It's me, him, and Phoenix Wright out here in the trenches.
And Violet and Jinx have to fight their werewolf dad. Jinx sacrifices herself, killing Vander and herself to save Violet.
Yes.
And that's how the show ends.
Well, we forgot Echo. Echo was there to help. And Echo was in the alternate pocket dimension where Violet's dead, but Jinx is not evil. And that was very cute. And him and like Heimerdinger sacrifices himself to send Echo back to the proper dimension so that he can help the cause and talk Jinx out of killing herself.
Right.
Using his time machine.
Yeah. He gets a time machine mower. It's very cool.
It only does 4 seconds at a time, which as a contrivance, as somebody who hates time travel, I liked.
Until it doesn't. Until at the end of the episode, he turns the dial all the way up and then makes it do better.
Yeah.
So,
was cool.
like, I mean, it's fine, right? They established that there's some negative side effects if he does that, and I think there are. Not that I remember, but they are. But it doesn't matter. Hopefully I've edited this episode well enough that this was somewhat coherent.
Probably not.
You just almost certainly not. But like, here's the thing: you have to have watched Arcane season 1 and Arcane season 2 to understand this one. Like, I'm sorry, you can tell listeners that like I try to be really good at this whole podcast thing. But I really struggled with this one because I went through and counted, and I was like, "There's about 17 load-bearing characters in this show," and I think that really pushed my ability to understand what was happening in the plot to its limit.
Yeah,
I think there are some great moments, but like they are all moments in which it is a focused story in like a narrative that is between like two characters. Like I think the stuff between Caitlyn and Vi is pretty good. The Caitlyn Jinx Vander stuff's pretty good. The Echo Powder alt universe is my favorite thing of all in this entire show. I think that's a really good what could have been story. But when they all start intersecting and all of these like plot stuff starts getting woven together, I really struggled with this one, y'all. And I don't think that's not me saying that this is a bad show. I think that if I went back and rewatched it, I would have a much greater appreciation for it. But on just a first watch, I really buckled.
What did you think about the fact that there's no universe in which both the sisters are alive? Because I think that's one of the things that kind of I sat with at the end of it, where I was like, it's so in the pocket universe where Jinx is alive, Violet dies because that universe's Echo gave them a bad tip, and then in the universe that we followed, Jinx dies, sacrificing herself to save Violet. So, I don't know. Did you pick up on that? Did that do anything for you?
So, like, I don't know if I can make any big takeaways from that besides the fact that, like, sometimes things are different. I think kind of the overall thrust of that was, there are always going to be costs and suffering. Actually, I think the thing is, like, the reason that Powder is not evil in the alt universe is because because Violet doesn't abandon her. That's the thing that makes her evil, is getting pushed away. So I think that's my biggest takeaway, is just like, if you have people there to support you, you don't become evil, which is like a, like a 6th grade level understanding of how the world works, but is also just true.
It is also just true, is the thing. Well, that's the thing. It's the same with Silco, right? Because Silco doesn't get abandoned, or he forgives Vander for trying to kill him, which is crazy, but good for you, boys. And then they're behind the bar together, living their beautiful married life. That's also. This is another thing that has my queer friends up in a tizzy, so that's why I noticed it. But when Vi and Jinx find their hideout, when they're trying to find Wolfander for the first time in the railway or whatever, the mine, wherever they are with the glowing mushrooms, their jackets are nested together on the same hanger.
Yeah, normal guy stuff. Sure, okay.
They're matching jackets nested together on the same hanger.
That's just what I do with my bros. So we like to get matching jackets and have them spoon each other.
Yeah, for sure. While you write them an apology letter.
Yeah. Sorry for penetrating you.
So that's happening. Then Jace and Victor get to be in what I refer to as the homosexual activity void, which had all the GIF makers on Tumblr also in it, tizzy. Just holding each other through eternity.
The singularity, or during the part where Victor or Jace meets his own evil ghost?
The singularity.
Okay, this is the singularity. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of queer behavior in the show, which I think speaks to.
I mean, there's just a gay sex scene. So like, there's no queer baiting. Yeah. In the prison, which like girls get to a flat surface, don't do it in the concrete. Like, come on. There's got to be a couch around here somewhere.
So much bacteria and dust.
Caitlyn was always like, Caitlin was all like, "Oh, I didn't have to send every enforcer up to the wall or whatever," and like that's the thing that's Vi's like, "Oh, you've made it so we can fuck now," and it's like, Caitlin, if you had really planned this better, you would have like got an air mattress or something. Like, come on.
Well, I think part of that was she did that so Jinx could escape, or so that Violet could free.
Yeah,
I think that's the important thing there.
Sure. I mean, like, I know that's what they're saying, but like, I think that if Caitlin was such a master strategist, she would have brought a pillow.
Hey, you got titties big enough, you could do whatever you want, I guess. But
okay, I'll Leyla Mammadova.
That could be the pillow. Is all I'm saying.
Okay, noted.
Anyway, so it's just I don't remember how we got onto this topic. You're
talking about homosexual activity, Void.
Yeah, but it started somewhere, and I just don't remember where. Like there was a plot relevant point I was trying to make.
It is January 20th, 2025. If you are listening to this, the day that we are recording it, so go ahead and look up historical events that happened on that date. And maybe you can backtrack and calculate why me and my co-host feel like we are from another planet right now.
We have got to stop recording through historical events. But anyway, the show, I think we can just kind of backtrack and recenter. And let's backtrack and recenter onto the fact that this show, when it's doing character stuff, is really, really good. I like the sister relationship. I like the Vi and Caitlin stuff. I like the Zondads. I like the stuff between Jason Victor and Jason Mel. Like, all that stuff is really good. And, like, Mel and her mom. Like, I actually have a lot of faith that those could have been executed really, really well.
Yeah, I have no doubt.
If given more time. But, like you said, the budget for this thing was insane. And there's just, like, you can...
So recently, the McElroy brothers, they do a thing where they name the year, and the vibes were so bad that they had to redo it. And I feel like because of history or the stars or just the general month, all podcasters are cursed this month.
So if you hear just like chaos from my channel, it's because my cat is making a fort out of my moving boxes, which were neatly stacked against the wall.
He's living in it now. He's getting cozy.
This is going to be unlistenable to anybody who hasn't been here for the whole ride. If you're new here, go pick a different episode.
Go listen to the first Arcane one. That one's pretty coherent. This one's not. I'm sorry.
This one is a historical artifact more than anything else.
Let's talk about the power of vibes.
Mm-hmm. Very strong in this show.
Because, like, I do think that this show really does leverage the montage very well. Like, the first, 4 or 5 episodes open with, a mini music video. The one in particular that struck me the most was, when they are attacking the Undercity, and it's, the... paint the town blue, riots all around you. That bit I thought was very strong and cool and visually striking. Even though, a lot of time was passing during those montages and, not a whole lot of information was being conveyed besides the cool, just, people going around with cool cyber guns and, the big, the misty smoke stuff going around, making weird shapes. I thought all of that was very effective and strong. And yeah, I just, why does that work so well as a storytelling medium when, a lot of the other stuff that, we struggled to follow was a little bit shakier?
It's just vibes. It's just really good vibes. Ash Nico knows how to make the fuck out of a song, so, that worked. Oh, the soundtrack in general was really strong. I do think it suffers a little bit from the, I don't think you watch the trashy reality TV that I do, but it suffers from a little bit of, the Love is Blind, extremely on-the-nose soundtrack song.
Yeah, it does.
Every once in a while, but the soundtrack songs are so good that you're like, I kind of don't care.
I mean, they did have, in the episode titled Heavy is the Crown, Linkin Park's Heavy is the Crown for, the final shot, so I wasn't mad about it.
They got Stromae, fucking the king of ennui, for the scene between Echo and Alt Universe Powder. Incredible. Love that song. And then when Jinx comes in for the final battle, they're blasting Stray Kids, my current favorite K-pop group. Incredible. But it is, I think, like, they just really know how to build a moment in this show. And it's not just, like, the soundtrack moments, but it's also, there's, like, in combat, they'll have, like, moments where a freeze frame looks like key art for the game. I think they just really know how to build on that and make it a moment. And so that when you see it, your brain's just so filled with dopamine that you have just enough context to think it's cool, but you're not overthinking it. Like, we love Andor on this program, right? Star Wars Andor. Andor is so slow and, like, meticulous, and the visuals are really great, but they're there in support of the story. I feel like the story is here in support of the visuals, which is not a bad thing. It rules supremely, but it's true.
Right. I don't think that is a bad thing to have in your story at all. I think sometimes it's just kind of nice to be like, okay, we are putting forth an aesthetic, we are putting forth, very striking images and beats and moments, and those are all cool. But I am somebody who, like, thinks that plot is important, and I don't know. I feel bad also because, like, there has been this conversation over the last few months about media literacy, and, like, nobody reads anymore, or, like, more relevant is, like, oh, people are watching Netflix while on their phones, so, like, you aren't they have to, like, write stuff in to, like, double check and make sure people are paying attention. And, like, did I check my phone a couple times while watching this program? Yes. I don't think that helped, and I feel bad about that. But I don't think I checked it enough to like really derail my understanding. I am feeling, like, frustrated by that.
I mean, I spent a couple episodes packing to move. Like, I was cleaning up my closet and packing and stuff. I think I'm just better at following vibes. Or at the very least allowing myself to be confused and then, like, being able to backfill information.
Yeah.
Which I feel like I spent some time doing. But I know there were a couple of moments where the vibes were so powerful I did stop packing, and I think some of the Jason Victor stuff, because I just love the imagery of that commune, like, very, like, Art Nouveau-y, but also Klimty, like, gold and white, like, it's just good to me. Mm-hmm. And then also, again, when Stromae was playing, I can't help but bop, you give me Stromae and I just... The lyrics are always so sad, but the beats are so good. You gotta just kind of dance a little bit. But I think that's the reason maybe I had an easier time, was because I'm just, like, more comfortable backfilling, because I think I'm always confused.
Sure.
It just, I don't know, it works better. But I for what this show is, I don't think it could have been any better.
Yeah,
I think it would be unreasonable of us to ask for.
No, I mean, here's the thing. Every major critical outlet that I, looked into thought this was good, right? And now, I mean, I looked into some YouTube videos that were like, oh, what went wrong with Arcane? And it's like, I didn't watch those because, speaking as a YouTuber, you should not trust YouTubers. We're a bunch of fucking weasels. But, like... everybody, Roger Ebert talked about, like, how it's, it was just, like, really effusive in their praise about this program. So, like, and that's usually a site that's gives generous reads. So, like, I think that, like, critically and from an audience, I think at, like, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I think it's, like, a certified hit. I don't really. It's not that I want this to be different. I think the problem is in me. Yeah, I think the fault is in our stars here. Like, I liked a lot of this. I just wish I had connected with it better.
I loved it so much because at some point I released the valve that wanted it to make sense, and I was just there going, wee! And I think that's the best possible way I could consume something like this, because the show, really, it's such a rare exception for me to care about the politics of any piece of media, as in, like, in-universe political infighting. Like, it has to be really interesting to capture my attention. So, like, Andor was really interesting. Game of Thrones lost me. This didn't lose me necessarily, but it just... I didn't feel anything particularly pressing about the politics.
Sure.
I think mostly maybe because the Undercity wasn't as involved, and it was less of a conflict of, the proletariat versus, like, Piltover, and more of this, like, strange, like, musical chairs of allegiances. Maybe that's what did it for me. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just, the vibes were so powerful and so immaculate that I was just happy to be there, you know?
Fair enough. So the last time we covered Arcane, I asked you, okay, what is a property that, has, relatively obscure or unimportant lore that you should turn into, like, a full-blown TV show? Now, at the end of season 2, I want to ask, what TV show would you like to turn into a video game or a visual novel?
Well, you seem to already have an idea, so while I think...
Yeah, I'll start with mine. So over the break, I watched Scavenger's Reign, which was a HBO like animated show about people who got stranded on a planet and were trying to find their way back to their crashed ship. And I think that show is great. It's got a lot of weird alien, creatures that are like kind of roaming around. There's a lot of like people trying to survive by working with those creatures and dealing with strange environmental hazards. I think that show rules. Unfortunately, it did get canceled because of course it did. But like I would love a roguelike a la Caves of Cud based on this game. I don't know if you've played Cud, Leyla, but the 1.0 released late last year, and I think Scavenger's Reign would be a perfect vehicle for this kind of like weird, esoteric, just like kind of exploring and figuring out what the world is doing and the strange histories and, ways the environment works, and then, getting owned and then respawning and trying again. I think that Scavenger's Reign would be a really, really cool vehicle for that.
I gotta watch Scavenger's Reign. You know what? You know what I have been watching a lot of lately? Watching a lot of hockey lately. Just specifically to take my mind off of history.
Sure.
And then
Understandable.
As it's happening around us. NHL Souls-like.
Say more.
There's some players on that ice that are just such, not necessarily even like points standouts, but are personality standouts, that they kind of become the final boss of the team. I think you get to...
in your case, the Sabres are kind of their own final boss.
They lost again today to the fucking Kraken. I don't want to talk about
Big
it.
surprise, yeah.
At least it wasn't as embarrassing as last time. It's fine. But, I think you could make like a psychological thriller out of it where...
It's a psychological thriller in our Discord for sure.
You don't even get the worst of it. Ange gets the most of it personally. But you could make like a psychological thriller where like you get to a point in a game, and if you're losing, the whatever player is like the personality on the other team just turns into a FromSoft monster that you have to beat the shit out of.
Yeah.
Or every time like a fight breaks out, they turn into like a phase 2 monster you have to beat the shit out of.
Yeah.
I'm namely thinking of like Ange's favorite Brad the Rat. I forget what his last name is. He could be a good one. Tage Thompson on the Sabres. He's very tall. He could be a good one. Any crazy person, which there are so many of them, and most of them are goalies. I think you could make a compelling Souls-like out of, and then at the end you win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. I think that instead of the world being subsumed into darkness or a horrific cycle being endlessly repeated, more FromSoft games should end with getting a little trophy.
Honestly, could be funny. It could be very funny to get a little trophy in a FromSoft game. Usually the little trophy is just being sad, but
yeah,
it would be very funny if somebody handed me like a little... Someday we'll get to Mr. Miyazaki and pitch him on our beautiful ideas. But until then, I guess we'll just have to contend with not having a PC port of Bloodborne, which I will continue to be sad about.
Yeah, it's R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Leyla, when we are not pitching the best Souls-like adaptations this hockey rink have ever seen, where else can we be found on the internet?
You can find me at LEYLSES on Blue Sky and Tumblr. Here's what I'll say. The people who have taken over our government have already told us they're going to flood the zone, so I'm probably not going to be posting that much for the next couple weeks, because I don't care for my zone to be flooded, and I don't care for to panic about things that may not come to pass. I have the same recommendation for all of you if you are prone to worrying and, this is not your ideal outcome. Maybe don't look at the news for a little while and focus on the things you can control in your actual communities. Otherwise, I'm working on a case study about Final Fantasies 7 through 9, a case study on Lies of P, and I will actually certainly be making a case study on the eye glints in Arcane. That's just the thing I'm going to write a paper on.
Hell yeah.
Aaron, what about you?
You could find me on Blue Sky at AA Voigt, on YouTube at AA Voigt, where I just released a video talking about Stew Pot and its relationship to Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm on Tumblr at Monster Factory Fanfic. I'm also trying to step a little bit away from constantly checking the news because it makes me sad. I will say, if you want to do... if you want to do me personally a solid, I also have a Patreon now to support my YouTube stuff. That's at AA Void on Patreon, where you can get all of my games and my novels that I've ever written. So if you want to give, me money, that would be cool. But if you want to personally help out your boy for real, and I understand not wanting to pay attention to the news, but I would really personally love it if RFK Jr. did not get anywhere near the seat of power. If you see that his confirmation hearings are coming up and you live in the United States, if you could contact your representative, both your senator and your representative in the House of Representatives, and make their life miserable until they promise to you that they will not confirm RFK Jr., that would be great, because that's what I'm going to be doing, because that guy is going to personally affect my day job. So just a little way you could help out your friends here at Mortified. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshco from the album Filmmaker's Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshco.bandcamp.com. Well, Bozo number 2, how shall we say goodbye to Arcane?
You're sadly mistaken. I'm Bozo 1.
We'll see you all next time.